without cholesterol, you can't make a cell, because the cholesterol, like you say, is around, it's in the membrane of the cell, and it stiffens the membrane of the cell. Without it, the cell membrane is just like a fat cell. It's like a bubble. So when you blow bubbles and you have these bubbles, you just touch them and they pop. In that sense, if you have a cell and you don't have cholesterol in that mycel, it's called, if you just have a lipid bilayer, then you don't have stability, and you can't actually have a cell for, like you were saying, get things in and out. So it is essential for life. In fact, if I were to take all the cholesterol out of your body, you would die faster than if I took all the oxygen out of it.
We are on the Healthy Heart webinar, and we have Dr. Scott and Cheryl today. Leslie's not able to make it, so we are going to continue the conversation about how to have a healthy heart. And today's topic is cholesterol, a very important topic. Everyone has questions. One of the last webinars we did, I think one of the first one, I was like, give me all the cholesterol you can get from how wonderful it is, based on people who aren't brainwashed by medicine, put it that way. But before we get started, Dr. Saunders, you want to give us the disclaimer today?
Okay. I'm not your doctor. I am a medical doctor, but I don't really I don't really practice medicine in the sense of giving people drugs. So what I do is I help people get off drugs. So the idea of this is to give you information that you can bring to your doctors and decide what's best for you, and not to just stop taking your medication or something like that. So when you hear information on this, make sure it's something that is for you, and you may need help from a physician or an expert to help you to decide if it's right for you.
Okay. Well, I was going to try to start us on Facebook, and that's not working. So Leslie will have to do that some other time. But this is what we're talking about today, the Healthy Heart Solution Kit. And like I said before, we're going to talk about cholesterol. And why do we want cholesterol, Dr. Scott?
Okay, this is such an interesting topic. So the myth of cholesterol, and this myth has been perpetrated for many years. And the cholesterol myth started out a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Somebody thought, we have a drug that can lower cholesterol. When people have clogs in their arteries, they have clots in their arteries, there's some cholesterol found in those clots. And so we have a theory that the cholesterol causes the clots to form in the arteries. And so they started doing some research, and they took some rabbits and they stuffed them full of cholesterol. And guess what? They got clogs in their arteries. Rabbits don't usually eat cholesterol. They're actually vegetarian. So they usually have an entirely different diet. So then that was out of that was born a myth of cholesterol clogging people's arteries. And it's been ongoing, and it's like nobody can say anything different. And if somebody publishes some research that shows cholesterol is not one of a cause or the cause of heart disease, then they can't get it published in a journal, because the journals are paid for by drug companies, and drug companies aren't going to pay for something that takes away their marketing, right? So they're not going to earn money that way. So all of the medical journals are paid for by drug companies. So you can imagine what's going to be published is whatever the marketing department of the drug company wants to be published, and that's exactly what happens. So it's very hard for anybody to bring up any kind of theories outside of the cholesterol myth. So let's demyth this cholesterol thing. So I just had someone in my office today who has arterial disease in his heart, and he's had a heart attack, and he has a stent, And and he has a low ejection fraction. He had congestive heart failure, still does to some extent, and he's on these medications, including one of them for cholesterol. And his cholesterol was really low. It was like 120. And his cardiologist said, "That's awesome. That's perfect." And I said, no. Look at the reality. The reality is not what is in the medical literature. Medical literature is marketing literature. You'll have to look at the scientific literature. So in 2019, a science journal called Nature published the definitive study on cholesterol. Does cholesterol affect mortality? And that's just the mortality. It has nothing to do with heart disease, but it's mortality. But this graph has been seen in every study that's been done, every study, even in the medical journals, it's there, but they kind of hide it and they don't let it be seen. And I'll explain that in a minute. So you have this guy who's been told by his cardiologist, he says, "Why is my specialist saying that my cholesterol is perfect and you're saying it's too low?" I said, let's look at the reality. So I showed him this graph. And if you look at this graph, what you see is all-cause mortality. This is the cholesterol down here. And this is the mortality level. So 1 is an average mortality. 2 is twice the average mortality. So your mortality is going up. So what makes your cholesterol what makes your mortality, what makes you twice as likely to die? Well, it's a cholesterol of 120 compared to a cholesterol of 220. So if your cholesterol is 220, you have half the risk of death of someone whose cholesterol is 120. He says, "Oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do?" I said, "Well, let's start by just stopping that cholesterol medication and see what your normal cholesterol is." He said, "Why do I need cholesterol?" Oh my gosh, that was Cheryl's question. Why do you need cholesterol? Well, guess what your brain is made out of?
Cholesterol.
Yeah. Now I'll give you 2 more guesses. It's cholesterol. You have to have cholesterol or you don't get any brain. And do you need to renew brain cells? Absolutely. You need to renew brain cells. You need to remake all the wiring, all the white matter in your brain is like almost all cholesterol. That is the what do you call it? The insulation for the wiring. All the insulation around your wires is cholesterol. And if you don't have that, it's called myelin. If you don't have that, then guess what? Your wires get crossed and things don't work. And that's called multiple sclerosis. Why do you get multiple sclerosis? Because you don't make myelin. Guess what? You need cholesterol to make myelin. This is like really, really important. Guess what else? Coenzyme Q10. If you don't have cholesterol, you can't make CoQ10. CoQ10 is not a vitamin. It's not in your food. Well, it is in small amounts. But what you really need is made in your body. And if you don't have enough cholesterol, you don't make CoQ10 and you won't make energy and your mitochondria will stop functioning. And then you're going to get what? Atrial fibrillation. Remember we talked about that last time. What was the number 1 cause of death from heart disease? According to the AI, the artificial intelligence, it was atrial fibrillation, AFib. So you need the cholesterol so you don't get AFib. You also need cholesterol for all your steroid hormones, your cortisol. Without cortisol, you can't live. Your testosterone. Without testosterone, or if you have low testosterone, then you're more likely to get heart disease. Your pregnenolone, progesterone, estrogen, DHEA, these are all made out of cholesterol. And if you don't have cholesterol, guess what? They've done studies on this. They've given people medications to lower their cholesterol. So they measure their cholesterol and their testosterone. The cholesterol drops down, testosterone drops down. The cholesterol drops down, testosterone drops down. Testosterone is so you're losing steroid hormones. These hormones that support your body and keep you young are all dependent on your level of cholesterol. So why is this this graph is totally opposite from what we're told. If you have super high cholesterol, 300, your death rate is not even 1.5 times the average. But if you drop it down to 120, you're double the risk of death. So that's why you're worse off with low cholesterol than you are with high cholesterol. That is why we need cholesterol.
And I know we're talking about cholesterol related to heart, but I had read something that lower cholesterol actually increases cancer. I don't know if this is true, if it's a scientific discovery, but if you think about if our whole body needs cholesterol and we're taking it away, then every part of our body is going to be deficient. Then we're going to start breaking down. Then we're going to start letting toxins in. We're not going to be able to clean our cells. And then our options, our capability of getting cancer would be higher. Now, I'm not saying it's going to cause it. It's just that maybe there's a correlation. But can you tell us what the cholesterol does for every cell? Like, isn't it basically cholesterol's round, and it basically helps everything get in and out of our cells? Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes. Well, partly that. Without cholesterol, you can't make a cell because the cholesterol, like you say, is around, is in the membrane of the cell, and it stiffens the membrane of the cell. Without it, the cell membrane is just like a fat cell. It's like a bubble. So when you blow bubbles and you have these bubbles, you just touch them and they pop. In that sense, if you have a cell and you don't have cholesterol in that mycel, it's called, if you just have a lipid bilayer, then you don't have stability and you can't actually have a cell for, like you were saying, get things in and out. So it is essential for life. In fact, if I were to take all the cholesterol out of your body, you would die faster than if I took all the oxygen out of your body. Did you know that? You can live without oxygen for a short period of time. You can do anoxic respiration. So you have people who are without oxygen for minutes. In some cases, there were people who fell into a pond under the ice. So they're in ice water and they're preserved without oxygen for hours, and they survive, right? But if I were to take the cholesterol out of, instant death. You would just instantly death. There's no way you could survive without cholesterol. That's how important it is for every cell.
Okay, so let's talk about cholesterol and food and fats. Saturated fat and cholesterol, unsaturated fat and cholesterol. What's good for getting cholesterol?
Okay. Cholesterol is made in your liver, and the amount you eat is a tiny proportion of what is actually made in your body, because all of your cells are using it, all your membranes, every cell. When you're regenerating cells, you're using cholesterol, you're making more. So that process mostly is made in the liver. And so what you make is really what's important. What you eat is so tiny. They've done studies on eggs, like people go egg yolks, right? So they're just full of cholesterol. So they, for a while in the 1970s, they were saying, don't eat eggs. Eggs are really bad for you, bad, because they have cholesterol in them. So somebody actually did a study, and they did this in a prison, and it's called a crossover study. And the crossover is the inmates, they all agreed to this, by the way. So half of the inmates got egg yolks, 6 a day. So that's eating 6 eggs a day. That's a lot of extra cholesterol, several hundred milligrams of cholesterol, several thousand milligrams of cholesterol. And then the other half did not get the 6 eggs a day in their food. Otherwise, they just ate their regular meals. So then after several months, 3 months, they looked at their cholesterol level, same, no change, same. So then they did a crossover. Now the people who weren't getting, it was a men's prison, so the men who weren't getting cholesterol were now getting the eggs, the 6 eggs a day, and the ones that weren't. So they crossed them over, and then they tested them again. 3 months later, no change in cholesterol at all. Do you know why? Because if you eat cholesterol, then what's the first thing it has to go? It has to go through your liver. And then your liver goes, oh, I don't need to make any more because we already have some. and then you don't make as much. So you maintain your level of cholesterol, and what you eat is irrelevant. It doesn't even matter at all. So then your next question was saturated fat. What does saturated fat have to do with this? Absolutely nothing. There is no fat in cholesterol. Cholesterol is not fat. It is a lipid, but it is not saturated fat. It has nothing to do with saturated fat at all. In fact, in mammalian bodies, including humans, we only have the capacity to make saturated fat. We can't make any other kind of fat. So when you make sugar into fat, for example, if you eat too much sugar and you make it into fat, so as you're getting fat, that is saturated fat. That's what it is. We have to eat all our unsaturated fats. So we have polyunsaturated fats, the omega-6 oils, omega-3, omega-9. Those are unsaturated. That's omega-3 unsaturated, omega-6 unsaturated. And those are always made by plants. They're not made at all by mammals. So like the cow, when you're eating the fat in the cow, it's mostly saturated fat. What the cow makes is saturated fat. But the cow eats grass, and the grass has unsaturated fat. So actually, if you're eating grass-fed beef, then the omega-3 oils could be pretty high if it's always grass-fed. But a lot of times it'll be grass-fed up to a point, and then at the end they finish with a lot of corn. So they feed the cows a lot of corn to fatten them up before slaughter. But if you have grass finished, technically that means they always eat grass, then they should have a lot of omega-3s, because if they're fed corn, they're going to have a lot of omega-6, because that's what corn is. That's what it has. So as far as the saturated fat goes, saturated fat has nothing at all whatsoever to do with cholesterol, not even related.
So earlier you said someone had what was it, high cholesterol, and you told them get off their cholesterol medication and see what their actual cholesterol is. So how does someone know whether to increase or decrease their cholesterol? By getting off cholesterol medication?
You know what? He went off his cholesterol medication, and he came back. We just did his test, so his cholesterol is 259, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so worried about that. It's 250. It's supposed to be below 200. I think it's because I ate that hamburger last week." And he was really upset about it. And I showed him the graph again. I said, look at the lowest death rate. Where do you want your cholesterol to be? And he said, well, 230. I said, but what if you're 250? And he goes, well, that's okay too. You were at 120. Look at your death rate at 120. You're double. You have twice the death rate as you did now. So by going off the medication, you have cut your death rate in half. Isn't that amazing? He's like, oh, I never looked at it that way. Well, why didn't my cardiologist tell me that? Okay, that's a good question. Why doesn't your cardiologist? Because this is a science paper, Nature Scientific Reports. It's published in a journal called Nature. Doctors don't see this, and doctors will not see this for at least 30 years. So it's new information, and anything that's new is not put in medical journals. Mm-hmm. So it'll take a long time, if they ever see this, it'll be decades. Usually it's around 20 or 30 years for the science to get into the medical journals. Remember that all medical journals are paid for by drug companies, and you get what you pay for. And so they're paying for marketing, and this is not good for Lipitor marketing. So they're not going to allow it to be published in a medical journal. So if your doctor only reads medical journals and doesn't read science journals, then they're going to be way behind science. And that's why the cardiologist is still saying, avoid saturated fat. That's not even part of anything. Lower your cholesterol less than 200. That's dumb. And it's because they're way behind the times, because they're just looking at marketing materials. That's all they get. That's where all their information comes from.
Now, can we talk about statins and cholesterol?
Yeah, we can. Okay. So let's look at one, like the study we talked about last time,
Yeah.
the United Kingdom, what was it? The artificial intelligence study on heart disease. What they found was the LDL cholesterol, and ranking all of the risk factors. And remember, the highest one was atrial fibrillation, and then there were socioeconomic status was way up there. Blood pressure was way down in like 20. Guess where LDL cholesterol was?
Wasn't it like 6? Oh, I was going to say 6 or 7, but you're about to blow that out of the water.
No, 46 out of 48. So out of all the risk factors, it was not related to heart disease or death from myocardial infarction. So if it's not related, then why would you take a statin? Because the purpose for statins, it doesn't fix your triglycerides, it doesn't fix your HDL, good cholesterol. All it does is lower LDL, but LDL is not related to heart disease. So let's look at, what does the statin do then? Well, in the process of dropping the cholesterol, there are certain immune inflammatory markers, inflammatory mediators that are decreased because you can't make them because you don't have enough cholesterol to make them. So it lowers inflammation. So in the process of lowering inflammation, there is a statistical difference in heart disease because of inflammation. But is it related to death rate? No, not at all. So long-term death rate. There is no good reason to take a statin because the risks outweigh the benefits. You have all of the risks that I talked about: losing your hormones, losing your CoQ10, losing your vitamin D, not being able to replace your cells, not being able to fix your brain. For all of those problems, you only get the benefit of a slight decrease in inflammation.
Yeah.
So that's my thought.
I was looking up a few of the, let's see, side effects. If you take statins, your side effects include skeletal, neurological, gastro distress, skin problems, reproductive problems, eye problems, and your labs can be skewed. I mean, in my opinion, I don't think it's worth it. Cholesterol, of all the goodness in cholesterol, keep your cholesterol, throw away the statin. I didn't say that. Your doctor didn't say that, but you have to make that decision. Okay. So any questions about cholesterol? I think we have some questions here. It looks like Krish is joining us. I know he's a long-time webinar attendee. Says, you have shared before that in eating eggs, you usually throw away the yolk and consume the egg whites. As egg yolks are rich in cholesterol, are we not eventually going to a state of hypocholesterolemia? One can assume that a subject is not getting cholesterol from any other source. That makes sense.
Okay, so yes, let's look at that. You don't need to eat cholesterol. It's not a nutrient. And so yes, cholesterol is going to be found in things like eggs, for example, but you don't need to throw away the yolks. Yes, people do that. I don't do that. I actually like the yolks. I eat eggs maybe once a week, but excuse me, I eat the whole egg. So the source of cholesterol does not need to come from your food. You don't need to even think about it. Yeah, that's what you were asking Cheryl too, about how do you get your cholesterol levels up to a normal level and all that. It's not something you need to think about because cholesterol is going to be made on an as needed basis. So as you're growing, then you tend to make more cholesterol. If you have growth hormone, human growth hormone causes you to make more cholesterol. Insulin causes you to make more cholesterol. It tells your liver, hey, we're growing here, need more cholesterol. Insulin like growth factor 1, IGF-1, and human growth hormone cause you to make more cholesterol. And that's what's doing all the repair in your body at night while you're sleeping, that anabolic metabolism. So you don't need to think about it, really. And if you eat cholesterol, fine, your liver will just make less and you'll still get the amount you need.
It's interesting that they put cholesterol on our labels. So it's making everybody think they're getting either too high or too low cholesterol. Am I going to buy this because there's 472 grams or milligrams of cholesterol? Like, how did that become on our label, food label, when we don't even need to consider it?
Because Lipitor has $1 billion marketing budget. When you have billions of dollars to market, you can imagine, what do we spend at Barton Publishing to market? Thousands of dollars. What if we had billions of dollars? Like, everybody would think we were the best company ever.
We are the best company ever. We don't need to spend money,
right? But
tell anybody that.
But everybody would know it. That's the difference.
Okay. We have a question here. Don Addy says, speaking of dietary cholesterol, can you disclose what your current diet is?
Oh, my current diet, cholesterol? I don't know. Okay. So last night I had beef stroganoff. I made it at home and it was great. It had a lot of mushrooms in it. So my diet basically consists of a high fiber diet. That's what I look for. So I had asparagus last night and a salad. I have a lot of fruit, nuts, and so I don't limit my diet except for processed food. I won't eat processed food. So things like sugar, white sugar, processed sugar. I'll eat sugar in an orange or an apple or a mango. Mangoes have a lot of sugar in them. I love mangoes.
I love mangoes.
But what I look for is a high fiber diet. So I'm looking for fiber.
No Chick-fil-A.
No fiber. I actually looked. I was really hungry, and I saw an ad for Chick-fil-A. I thought, that looks really good. I didn't take one.
I did notice someone recently who doesn't eat fast food, ate some Chick-fil-A, got a terrible stomach ache. It's just bound to happen if you're eating healthy. You eat processed food, your body knows it's not good for you, and it'll tell you. Okay, Eric Howell, also a regular. Good to see you. Thank you. Beautiful Dr. Scott and Cheryl. This one was for sale, Dr. Saunders, and that exactly what the Lord and you doing. I'm so grateful. Dr. Saunders saved my life.
You're welcome.
We're glad. I think he saves a lot of lives. Honestly, he does. All right. Gary Clark has a question. Last Sunday afternoon, my sister, 61 with SLE, experienced an AFib episode that would not resolve after 2 hours. So we went to the ER. After 2 hours of IV diltiazem, her AFib finally converted to normal sinus rhythm. She's been taking healthy heart supplement plus PQQ in shilajit. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. It's a mushroom.
Shilajit, yeah.
Thank you. Her new cardiologist is suggesting an ablation. Should she take a 2 times or 3 times the dose of Healthy Heart, which is this supplement, or any other particular supplementation suggestions?
Okay, so there's something in that's not in the Healthy Heart because it takes teaspoons of it to make it. We just couldn't fit it into a pill. That was the problem. So we tried to put everything that your heart needs in there. Okay, so the Healthy Heart is to help. It's a group of nutrients and some herbal extracts to help the heart, but it's not everything. So I would take the Healthy Heart and add a couple of things. So D-ribose, and that comes in a powder form. It's a sugar and it's sweet, but it's not like glucose. It's ribose. It's a 5-carbon sugar that's needed to make ribonucleic acid RNA or deoxyribonucleic acid DNA, so that the mitochondria can reproduce. And that's essentially what's needed when somebody has atrial fibrillation, is they have a lack of mitochondria in the heart muscles. So to increase the number of mitochondria, PQQ is a great idea. And then Healthy Heart, and then add the D-ribose, about 1 teaspoon twice a day. And then the other one that requires large amounts is L-carnitine. And carnitine is something that helps actually it gets the fat into the mitochondria to make better energy. So it makes the mitochondria more efficient at using fat for energy. And so carnitine is really important. We make it in our body. It's not a nutrient, but if you don't have enough of it, and that's kind of a common issue, is not having enough carnitine. Not majority of people, but a small minority, a large minority of people have carnitine deficiencies. So it's worth adding that in too if somebody has atrial fibrillation. So the carnitine would be about 4,000 to 5,000 milligrams a day, so 4 to 5 grams a day.
Okay, now Leslie's really good about talking about our supplements. So this is our Healthy Heart supplements, one of our newest ones. And here's what's in it. L-carnitine, 1,000 milligrams, beet, 500 milligrams, ashwagandha, 300 milligrams, olive leaf extract, 200 milligrams, and coenzyme Q10, 100 milligrams. And you can buy these at Barton Webinar. You'd use Webinar 25 for a discount for any of our supplements and our Healthy Heart Solution Kit. Leslie has it all marked up. Mine is nice and clean. That's the difference between us. But so why did you put all of these in here?
Okay, because part of it is to increase the energy supply. So CoQ10 is a common deficiency, especially in people who have heart disease and are taking statins. And L-carnitine is a common, like I said, a common deficiency. A large minority of people have that issue. And we could not put 4 grams of carnitine in there. And so the 100 milligrams is good. 1,000 milligrams is good. That's 1 gram. If you took 2 a day, that would be a reasonable supplement. But if you actually have atrial fibrillation, I would even add more. I would even add to that and take an extra carnitine supplement. The other things in there are to dilate blood vessels, to lower blood pressure. So for example, beetroot extract helps make nitric oxide that relaxes blood vessels and allows better blood flow. So that's increased
the larger straw, right?
That's the
larger straw.
That's right, a larger straw. And then ashwagandha is to help relaxation. And so the other herbs are actually for adrenal stress.
Mm-hmm.
So remember, we talked about this in not the last episode, but the one before that. We were talking about stress and how important that is, and how stress is more related to heart disease than any chemistry you can think of. Not hormones, not cholesterol, not blood pressure, not nitric oxide, whatever. Stress is a bigger factor than all of them put together. So the supplement is actually to assist in that as well. So they're called adaptogens, help the adrenal glands adapt to stress.
I watched someone who talked about emotional health actually this morning. She was talking about, is emotional health a physical problem? It is, because your emotions are actually releasing all negative hormones in your body that are bringing about higher cortisol, which is damaging more of your body, putting your nervous system in fight or flight. But overall, your body just gets stressed. So if you have any emotional stress, you're affecting your heart. It's not just a physical stress issue. You're working too hard. Think about whether or not you're actually emotionally stressed, because stress is high, whether it's physical or emotional. That was what, number 2 or 3 on the list. And so things like ashwagandha are going to just help you get rid of stress, get your body in a better homeostasis mode. Okay.
Yeah.
We have another question. I'm allergic to statins and my cardiologist gave me Praluent to give myself a shot every 2 weeks. My HDL is low, but triglycerides are high. My good cholesterol is 45.
Okay. Good cholesterol is 45. That's okay. What was the other number? Was it the cholesterol?
My HDL is low, but triglycerides are high, and she's taking Praluent.
Okay. So if the triglycerides are high, that generally indicates that you may have insulin resistance, because the insulin resistance, the higher levels of insulin they kind of block your body, your cells from using fat for energy, so that the triglycerides go up. And The reason that's important is because your body should run about 60% fat and 40% carbs, or 40% glucose. And the reason for that is the fat is a low octane fuel, and it doesn't make a lot of oxygen free radicals, and it runs things generally well. It's kind of like diesel fuel, whereas the carbs, the glucose is like gasoline or nitromethane. It's like it'll run really fast, but it also makes a lot of oxygen free radicals and does damage to DNA. So if you can't burn that fat, then the triglycerides build up in your blood. So that's an issue. Your HDL is okay, but you know what? I would look at the actual research, look it up in Nature Scientific Reports in 2019, February 2019, and look where you want your cholesterol. You want to make sure it's around 220, 240, somewhere in there. 220 to 240 is what's going to give you the best functionality of your body.
When we talk about cholesterol, one thing we haven't mentioned is omegas. A lot of people talk about, oh, for healthy cholesterol, you want fish oil or garlic. Those are other things that people say, take garlic supplements. Is there any validity in those helping cholesterol?
So for fish oil, not really. Fish oil does help lower inflammation because fish oil, the omega-3 oils, are made into anti-inflammatory mediators to suppress inflammation because there's this constant balance going on. And if you have high omega-6 and you're making a lot of extra inflammatory mediators, you can have high inflammation, and that can cause extra damage to your arteries, which causes clots. Remember, the buildup in your arteries is clots, not cholesterol. And so the inflammation causes you to make clots more easily. So then if you get omega-3 and you bring that down, then you don't make clots as easily, and that protects your heart. So the omega-3 protects your heart, but not having anything to do with cholesterol. That's an entirely different issue, and it's otherwise not even related to cholesterol levels or deposits or anything like that. The other thing you asked about was garlic, yeah. So garlic does actually have some benefit. Garlic lowers clotting factors as well. It decreases clotting. And so it works by decreasing inflammation and decreasing clotting specifically. And remember, heart disease is clotting, not cholesterol. There is no cholesterol deposits in your arteries. There are clots in your arteries that have some cholesterol in them because the membranes, the cell membranes of all the red blood cells that are in there, what are the cell membranes made out of? They're made out of cholesterol, just like every other cell membrane in your body. So though that's where the cholesterol comes from, is the cell membranes. It's not because you have a bunch of cholesterol swimming around in your blood.
You are the Tony Stark of the medicine world.
I don't know who Tony Stark is.
He's from Avengers. He's he's the one that's coming up with the futuristic ways of living. He created a time machine. He's beyond everybody's current capacity to live. He's always in the future, creating new things. And it's kind of like your medical knowledge is in the future, and you're bringing it to us without having to get in the time machine.
Yeah, but I'm not creating like Tony Stark. I'm just bringing out the research and looking at science journals instead of medical journals. That's all.
All right. We have another. Oh, what about red yeast extract? People often talk about.
That's a great question. We've never addressed that. Guess what? Red yeast rice extract is a statin. It is Mevacor. It's the same thing. And so, but since it's natural, it can't be. They can sell it over the counter, in other words. But what the company did that makes Mevacor, they brought the company that was using red rice yeast and saying it lowers cholesterol to court, and saying you can't do that because that's saying that it cures heart disease or it helps heart disease or something like that. So you can still sell red rice yeast, you just can't make a claim on it that it lowers cholesterol. That's all. Isn't that interesting?
Yes, it is. So,
Competition with the drug companies.
yes. All right. Charles Clark asks, what foods and supplements reduce endothelial inflammation?
What drugs? Oh, that's a great question. Okay. Anything that lowers inflammation will help that. So we just talked about fish oil, for example. Fish oil is a great way to lower inflammation. But anything that lowers clotting or inflammation. Okay. So anti-inflammatories we use, like turmeric, is useful for lowering endothelial inflammation. But more important than all of that, well, that's actually kind of important. There's another one, is what is the frankincense plant is boswellia. Boswellia is a great anti-inflammatory. It actually compared head to head with Aleve. Like it was equivalent to Aleve without any of the side effects. So it didn't do any damage like the Aleve does, and still had the anti-inflammatory effect.
How do you get boswellia? Is it a supplement, a liquid?
Yeah, it's a supplement, boswellia. It's an extract of an herb, and it's the same herb that they get the resin from frankincense out of. So frankincense is the resin, boswellia is the herbal extract.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So would you do something like, we have a headache, take it, or something you would take boswellia regularly if you want to reduce?
No, like a headache, like that kind of thing. So ideally, you don't want to be taking pills. Avoiding pills is probably a good idea. So what you want is a good diet that balances your omega-6 to omega-3 ratio, or taking some extra, like cod liver oil. I just take a tablespoon periodically, cod liver oil. And then I have a chaser because I don't really like the taste of it.
Who does?
Yeah, I don't know. And then having a high vegetable diet, fruits and vegetables, so that you have really good, astaxanthins and zeaxanthins, and lutein, and all of those things, carotenoids, all those things that lower inflammation in your body will help your blood vessels to function. And in fact, if you look at things that will repair the lining, the glycocalyx lining inside your blood vessels, they are all extracts from fruits and vegetables. There's something that you can buy now called fucoidan, which is from mushrooms. And it has the fucose, which is important for that glycocalyx lining. And then the others are extracts from things like a bitter melon, or what's another one? Anyway, they're all like fruit. There was a plum extract in one of them. So, as far as I'm concerned, eat the fruits, eat the vegetables. We like to parse everything out and go, okay, I take this for that, and this for that, and this for that, and this for that. And so people, and they're willing to sell it, right? So they take this perfectly good fruit and they break it up into all its component parts, and they put it in pills, and they sell this for heart disease, and this for lowering cholesterol, and this for lowering your blood pressure, and this. And so people are just taking pills all day long. For heaven's sakes, just eat the fruits and vegetables, because that way you're going to repair the lining of your arteries and decrease inflammation in the arteries.
Eat those mangoes. They're my favorite as well. They're in season. They're in Florida. They're hanging on the trees. I don't have a mango tree. Every time I pass one, I'm like, Lord, please bring the mangoes. I want real fresh mangoes, not the ones from the store. The ones from the trees are super sweet, super delicious. Sidebar.
When I lived in Venezuela, the place where I lived, everybody had a mango tree, and there were all different kinds. There were mangoes that were as big as a pineapple, and mangoes that were little teeny mangoes this big. They were all over the place. They didn't sell them in stores because you could just walk along the street and pick them up off the ground anywhere. It was amazing. It stank too. There was
How nice. All right. So
mangoes everywhere.
if you were to sum up cholesterol on today's webinar, give us like a 2-minute version to wrap this all up.
Okay. So cholesterol is not an issue. Don't think about it. Don't worry about it. Don't test for it. Don't do anything about cholesterol. It's a non-issue. It was number 46 out of 48. And it was below everything else. It was below exercise. It was below other dietary considerations. It was below socioeconomic status. It was below stress. It was below everything else. The cholesterol was down as a risk factor for heart disease below that. There is no cholesterol risk factor for heart disease. So if you have heart disease, work on the problem and forget about the cholesterol. That's not a problem. It wasn't a problem for anybody. It never was.
I hope that gives a lot of people relief from something that's been over their heads. All right. Well, this has been wonderful, Dr. Scott. We look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you so much for joining us. Go to Barton Webinar, use our code webinar25 for a discount on any of our goodies. All right. We'll see you next week.
Okay,
bye.
Bye.